There we go. Back once again, carrying on where we left off. Had a little bit of internet connectivity issues last time. Had to get in contact with my ISP, but things are looking quite a bit better now. Um, so, hey Shulk, how you doing, bud? Can you hear me all right? How's the internet? Is it holding up? Yep, can hear you good. Fantastic. By the way, Shulk, have you seen the fairies yet? Are you aware of the Fey realm? Oh, silly me. Um, I did. Thanks, man. Um, hello, Hannah. I actually don't think the stream picks her up most of the time. Yeah, it seems like the new filters on the mic are helping. I've got my daughter in the background who is very, very excited running around because she was spending some time in the garden, jumping on the trampoline and such, and she can be very loud, but it seems like I'm hoping at least the noise suppression is working because I didn't see her coming up very loudly on the thing, but I'm not too sure about the actual audio. I'll have to check at some point. Yeah, dude, I'm super chuffed with that pink flame magic. Did you see the effect that I added at the end? Um, uh, I'm not actually sure. Let me. I wonder if I can just TP my character. Probably could. Take a little walk. So I've added the slimes, big boy slimes over here, as well as check out. So we've got our big slimes here, and then we've also got fire slimes, earth slimes, all the elemental slimes placed. Pretty chuffed with that. Fairies have got. I added an effect. I'll actually just show it to you, because I can just put it. Can just put it here. So this is fairy fire. Let's put it where the player is. Okay, so if I go over here, and then I can just copy paste this effect a few times, so I can show it off. So now as I log in, there should just be a lot of fairy fire that's going to go off around me. Yeah, there we go. Whoops, that was a little bit trippy. Yeah, I think that's not exactly how it's supposed to look. But when it hits on the actual player character, you get this, and I can actually show off the sprite sheet over here. So if we jump into sprite mode, we can see this is kind of the fairy fire sprite. So it's hitting this tile, and then the tiles change, and it animates. And I wanted to make it look like flowers popping. Yeah, let me actually just take the walk to the fairies. Or hold on. Like I want to teleport, but I'd just be entering a random X or Y location, and I run a risk of just putting it straight onto a So as here I can show the river slimes that we placed. I wonder, did people fight these guys often? Didn't they drop mana psychic potions? Weren't they like a pretty good resource of Psi Vials or one of them? I'm also pretty chuffed with the daily sprite today, the Sky Snake. So over here we can see the famous little zone of lightning slimes up there. Oh, epic. I'm wondering with guild work if we keep the skilling contracts. Those were pretty successful, right? I quite like the idea of being able to get guild work XP for skilling, but it's also like you don't ever want it to be too easy, but I think it was balanced. Because I understand the appeal of Slayer. Like I think having played OSRS a little bit more deeply. Um yeah, no one used them. Yeah. Maybe not putting them in for that reason and then uh putting proper skilling mini games. Anyway, I don't know if you've seen this. We've seen these guys in game. Yeah, probably at the end of the last stream, but this is the part you haven't seen. Check out, check out. There we go. So when I get hit, there's the effect. So that little pink thing is me taking fey damage. Pretty cool. And then obviously, if you off-tick them with multiple, you can tell when you're about to get hit or as you're getting hit from the effect, so you can know if you anger too many, you're going to be covered in it. But yeah, rather pleased with that, as you can imagine. Wild child. Yeah, 100%, dude. So basically, those colorful effects that people see are the projectile, like, basically just an effect to indicate the damage type you're taking. So these fairies do psychic damage of like Fey type or whatever. Obviously, this is just normal psychic damage with the current stats. We're probably going to add like specific typing in. But what's cool is that obviously one of the big differences between ranged and psychic is that psychic attacks land instantly. So as you can see on the tick that the fairy casts, I take damage. So if I'm doing a protection spell or a protection prayer, I have to do it in advance. So I have to be protecting against psychic a tick before the attack actually starts. Whereas ranging, there is a time delay when I do an attack. So if I, let's see, do I have any arrows? I do have arrows, fantastic. So I'm gonna shoot an arrow at the fairy, and there's gonna be an amount of time after I shoot the arrow before it hits. Yeah, there you go. So there's like 3 or 4 ticks, and then the fairy takes damage. So if someone is attacking you with range, or an enemy is attacking you with range, you can swap your defensive stat after the attack has been fired before it hits your character. It's a nice little bit of gameplay that can occur with that, and then good old guns. I don't know if you've seen the muzzle flash, love it. But yeah, so what it means is like if I'm using a ranged weapon and I time it really well, so like for example, if I stand 5 tiles away from someone and I use a ranged weapon, and it's a 3-tick ranged weapon, like a short bow, and then I switch to a 3-tick melee weapon, what I can do is I can do the ranged attack, and then immediately click on my opponent and switch to the melee weapon, and the melee attack will land, and it'll take me 2 ticks to travel, so the melee attack will land on the 3rd tick at the same time that the range damage will land, so it allows you to do some PvP kind of by stacking ticks that way. So that's kind of one of the design ideas there. So rather pleased with that overall. Do you have an enemy that you want me to animate? Any suggestions? Because I'm just kind of animating and adding enemies at this point. I've put all the slimes in. Most recent animation was the fairy. Um, any one in particular that you wanted to see in the game? Nothing in particular up to me. Fantastic. Um, well, let's see what's interesting. I mean, generally the psychics are quite interesting. Maybe an orc shaman. I think they're a classic. That's one option. Or who do you think's using nature magic? Do we give an orc shaman nature magic? I think that makes sense. Big boy. Sweet. And away we go. So we've got an idol. I think it's just one change that starves don't magically shrink. Actually, no, I see a problem. We should probably put him on the ground first of all. And then when his staff shrinks, we actually need to pick the whole thing up. So I'm losing a pixel there, so not great. I think I'm gonna redo this. It's gonna be easier. Basically, I'm gonna drop him without dropping the staff. Okay, there we go. And all the arcs are similar, so easy to animate. Yeah, like the slimes, 100%, dude. Well, it's also like it's definitely inspiring me to add a lot more variety now. And also one thing that I want to do is every time that we have a kind of unique enemy style, I would like to expand with more variety in the same way that we've done with the orcs and the slimes and the goblins. So if you look at it, we probably had 100 total different enemy types, where we had like 7 different goblins, like up to 18 different slimes, 5 or 6 different orc types. What I would want is almost like 100 different types of enemies, and then like within each type there is the variation, leading to a much greater deal of like game depth. I'd say that'd be my goal, but obviously, you know, it's a lot of content. Okay, cool. So we're gonna do running. So I have a little trick with how I do running, and I'll actually communicate that trick so I can show everyone. So to do that, I'm just going to open one of my earlier files, and then I can kind of give everyone a little rundown. So basically, if we go to enemy animations and we look at the bandit, they're a pretty good example. Open this up in a sprite. So if you look at the run animation, what I do is we're having this thing where we're lifting a foot a little bit, a lot, back to a little bit on the left leg, and then the right leg is the other half. Little, a lot, a little. So there's this kind of pattern of in, out, in. And that's kind of the main idea to get the running walking. So obviously with the idle, we're just moving them up and down. So now here we keep the idle pattern. So I always talk about this. So what does that mean? It means the bob, the up and down movement, we're actually keeping when we're doing the run. Yeah, dude, I kings and queens are fun. Also, I like limiting the king and queen to one spawn always. It does make things challenging if you have to farm them. Like, I think people used to farm the rat king for gems, if I wasn't mistaken. Like, he was a pretty decent source of gems, and then people would compete for the spawn. So it's difficult because, like, thematically, it feels like kings is like there's one frog king, for instance. But yeah, definitely, I love the king type. It's a very anime. So, animating the run, yes. So first of all, lift up his leg a little. So I think a little can cut it there. And then we're going to lift it up. Oops, no, that's the wrong place. That one. A little. Then we're going to do a lot. It's going to look like these orcs are hauling ass, dude. And then we can copy this. So, 1, 2, and then delete that. And then here, a little. Maybe my little's a bit too much there. And yeah, probably need to do something. I think my right leg is better. So I think that one flows better, which means that's too aggressive. Which means we're gonna redo it. So copy that in. Put that in position 7. 7. So that's fine. Delete. 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 So take one off. There we go. And then here we lift it to there. There we go. Ah, hello, Fernan Dodge. Sorry, I'm completely butchering that username. Yes, we have a Discord where you can jump on and chat. And we've kind of got the first version of the game, which is released on Steam, called Damascus, that is fully 2D. And then I would say this is kind of a spiritual successor that we're rebuilding in 2.5D with a whole bunch of new content and kind of updated visuals and style. We're busy working on the Steam page for this game, where you'll be able to wishlist it and all that sort of stuff. In the meantime, you can jump on the Discord, chat with the community, chat with any of us. Really great to have you here, and yeah, if you wouldn't mind popping a follow, that's a huge help as well on the Twitch. So welcome. And yeah, any question you want to ask away. Oh, you're a frog, Hannah. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Anyway, now, if I'm not mistaken... Yeah, there we go. Shulk is one of our mods on Discord. He's just popped a link to it in the chat. I realize I just talked about the Discord without providing the link. Sorry about that. Thank you, Shulk. Always a lifesaver. Set loop section. There we go. As you can see, we have an orc. Yeah, so now we can worry about getting his attack animation in. I think for attack we're going to take the same idle animation style, so just to keep the rhythm. I also find with a tick-based game, maintaining the rhythm is very important. These two need to swap. Okay, I've done something strange with the frames here. So let's see that one. 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That is correct, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's what I want there. Then I think that goes there. And that goes there. There we go. That's what I wanted. So I'm putting this run animation here as our secondary run animation in case I need it. And then here I'm copying the main idle loop frames for adding in the attack animation. This attack is going to be a psychic attack because this is a orc shaman. So it's going to originate at the staff area and then it's going to like pulse out. Originally I was thinking about giving them nature magic, but I think I'm going to give the this one some earth magic. And obviously we'll give it a kind of emissive brightness with the attack, and then we can also do a kind of like rock effect on the player. So maybe it'll be fun to add all of that right now. And then we can see it in play. And also just to let you know what type of game this is, it is going to be an MMORPG. So everything that you're seeing is actually running on a server and has a multiplayer component. So that's quite fun. Anyway, without further ado, let's start adding a kind of earth attack. So start by having the So that's a great question. So this little loop section is defined by a sprite, so this has nothing to do with the final product. So I can show you what it looks like in Unity. Once we bring it into Unity, we have these sprite sheets. What I've done to handle the sprite sheets, as you can see, this kind of just, it's a regular texture with all of the images in a single file. So if we open that in a sprite, the finished product kind of looks like this, right? So in sprite, when I'm done with the animating, I'll export it as a sprite sheet and we get this single file. In terms of how I'm managing that file in the game engine, so if we go to the enemy prefabs, we click on one, you can see that the sprite sheet is on this quad, which is a 3D object that is semi-billboarded to the camera. I say semi because it billboards on the X and Y axis, but doesn't billboard on the Z. This allows to give a kind of pseudo 3D. I'll demonstrate that in a second. But what I do then is I have a component over here that I made called a sprite sheet animator. And in the sprite sheet animator component, you can adjust the columns, width and rows for the sprite sheet. So in this case, it's 6 by 5. And then over here, I have idle animation, which is going to be starting at frame 0 and going to frame 5. So it's from there to there. And then how long the animation is, and then walk, and then attack, and then run and death. So as you can see, there are 5 animations set across 30 frames that I've kind of standardized for enemies. So to make the workflow quite simple, what I've done is every enemy in the game, those 30 frames are kind of a guaranteed set, and then enemies that have special attacks, special groups, or special abilities will sit at the bottom of the sprite sheet with additional frames, and then obviously for those ones I have to define it. But one of the advantages of using the kind of pre-thought out workflow is that I just do the 30 frames. In this case, if we go back to our Orc Shaman, so as you can see, the first 6 frames I've made are the walk, sorry, the idle, and then this is the walk, and then frames 13 through 18 is going to be the attack. That's why we're putting it on those frames, so it matches the system. And then we've got our run, which I've just kind of copied the walk on 18 through 24. We're not really using runs yet, so I'm just keeping the frames open, and then we'll add the death at the end. So yeah, just kind of built the system. I can show you the code. So if you check here, this is the sprite sheet animator. It's not too complicated. Basically what it's doing is it is just taking in the, makes it a bit bigger. It's just taking in the columns and rows of the sprite sheet and dividing up the UV map, and then animating through the UV map according to a timer. So it's like, you can think it's moving the UV on the quad. And yeah, everything else is just defined by your traditional kind of Unity material system. And then you get this, and I'll show you the finished product. So if we actually jump in the yep, and here we go. Here's what you get. So when I said semi 2D, you can see we've got the 3-dimensional quad, but then if I move my camera like this, it's got a bit of, it's not billboarding fully, because I didn't want to billboard fully. I wanted to give it that 2.5D vibe, so a little bit like Octopath Traveler, but you have camera control. And then obviously if you're rotating, the sprite does billboard, and the advantage is that we can cast shadows from the pixel art because it's a 3D quad, and we get this kind of nice pixel shadow that actually responds to our animations as we walk. Yeah, and that's kind of just a very loose showcase of what we're doing there. And yeah, maybe I can find something to fight and show you a little bit more of the game. I think I was just walking between areas. Maybe if we go to the swamp. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. So yeah, being in the MMO, one of our goals is to keep it like stylistically quite simple, because that also means we can put tons of players on screen. Yeah, there we go. So here's a attacking little slime. I'm immortal right now because I got God mode on just so I can taste. But yeah, so I'm using a pistol. So it's a kind of post-apocalyptic fantasy game. So the idea is that the world is in a kind of medieval state of technology, but still has guns and a few other accoutrements. And they don't really know about the history of humans ever having high technology or anything like that. And then they've also, at some point, humanity discovered psychic abilities, which is kind of turned into a sort of pseudo magic to everyone because they've got these like medieval belief systems. But yeah, and you use these things called psychic actuators to use your psychic powers, and a little bit of secrets behind all of that. But that's a part of the game. And then we've got, maybe I can show you because I just love showing this off. Recently added ice grenades to the game. Check it out. There we go. Freezes them in little blocks, stuns them. And these particular grenades are AoE, so you can hit multiple targets as well. So yeah, so that's a little showcase of the game. Now if we jump back to our Orc Shaman, we can animate his attack. Yeah, it's always fun to be able to just gush about the game and show it to people, so I appreciate that. Oh, dude, thanks for letting me show it. um, so I like to keep the kind of so basically now we are gonna start growing this mud spell. I made a mistake. Okay, well, copy this, paste it here, and undo it here. There we go. Okay. Actually, hold on. What am I doing? There we go. So it actually won't be in 17 and 18, so I've actually made a slight mistake there. So what I need to do is take this frame, (14, 15, 16, 17). 16, 17, yeah, and then this one gets deleted, and then this 18 gets deleted, and the 17 gets duplicated. Cool. Basically, because the attack is going to blast out on the 4th frame, the 5th frame it dissipates, and the final frame there has to be no remnants of the spell, just so it fits the animation system. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is going to cast out and it's going to dissipate here. Okay, and then we're going to add some color variation shortly. Okay. So if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm kind of just blocking out the general shape of the attack. And then I'm going to add more detail in a second. So this is the final frame, so this is when the attack happens. So for like earth attacks, I'm thinking it summons the mud and then forms into a kind of rock that then fires out, right? So like this is now the formed earth. And then what we can do is we can kind of reinforce that with these previous frames. So now we've got this kind of blast that forms, and then it's going to fire off. And maybe we can have little bits dissipate down here. Maybe a little bit of like wind from the earth flying away. Does every enemy have the same sprite dimensions? No, they do not. It depends on the size of the enemy. So some enemies take 1 tile and are 24 by 24. Some enemies are 2 tiles and those are 48 by 48. And then some enemies can take up 3 tiles. They're absolutely massive and those have different proportions. Yeah, giant skeleton warrior, 100% shock. So I can actually show you one. I'll show you one of our boss monsters. I'm a fan of this guy. This is our Cursed Yeti. Check him out. I cannot wait to animate this guy and bring him into life because he's going to get a whole bunch of special attacks, swinging his tail, doing claw attacks, all for quite an epic boss fight. But yeah, so obviously there is different proportionality depending on the size of the enemy. And then you can imagine that, maybe I'll give you some context. The shaman that we're working on is this big compared to the Yeti. So that's also fun. Cool, so let's finalize our kind of earth attack. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to add some general group, like just interest to this brown. So just gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this. Just kind of speckle some brown in here. And then where it kind of gets big here, I want to actually purposefully show what's going on here a little bit. Sweet, and then if we set the loop section, there we go. now we can see the attack. I think that works for a Orc Shaman casting some mud magic. And the other thing is that the effect that you see here will be luminous because all magic has a kind of emissive property. So we'll set the emission map at a later stage. But in the meantime, let's quickly do the death animation for this guy. I'm glad to see Twitch is holding up and that the thing seems to be fine. Is the internet still hanging in there? Shalk, how's it going? Are we're still alive? I've been having internet problems all day, all weekend actually. It's terrible. What can you do? Fantastic. Okay, sweet. So these are going to be our last frames. And then we might as well place this character and then we can go and check out his animations. And that'll be pretty cool. And we dissolve. Oops. And there we go. And that is our death animation. And if anyone wants to see all the animations, I think if I just do this, there we go. Idle, run, attack, run, death. Great. And then to kind of connect the loop and show the final product, we export sprite sheet. Obviously this will export it as one giant sprite sheet, so we're just going to give it a fixed number of columns, 6, and then we get our 6x5 30 frame sprite sheet that we can fit into our system, where the 5 default animations, so you can think of these as the 5 default animations. If I wanted to add a special animation to this character, I would add it at the bottom of the sprite sheet and then have to define it specifically. But because I'm doing defaults, I don't have to define anything because the system is going to know about everything, and that's going to be fantastic. Sweet, so this is called Orc Shaman Sheet. Now we can go back to Unity. We go over here, drop this in enemy animations, set the settings. So here we go, there's our Orc Shaman fully animated and ready to be added to the game. So the next thing we have to do is we use the enemy generator. So I've created this little scene that helps us generate characters where we do a little bit of setup, and the reason that I use the scene, yeah, so the animations are constant frame rate on a per animation basis. So you can increase the frame rate for specific animations, and then obviously if you want a specific frame delay, you can duplicate the frame if needed. So there are a few ways to do that. You can either break it up into multiple animations. So let's say I wanted to have a sword where as the sword is hitting, it's like 200 milliseconds, and where's the wind up, maybe the frame rate's 100 milliseconds, and then like the pullback's back to 100 milliseconds. Instead of duplicating the frames, I can just use the skill sheet editor to make that 3 animations with different frame rates, because you can set the frame rate per animation. Yeah, so like kind of like you can technically break it up frame by frame if you really wanted to. So there's a lot of freedom with the system, and again, it's like it's custom coded. So if I really wanted to, I could add specific frame delays. Just not really using them right now. But again, very great question. So now we're gonna grab our shaman sprite. So drop the orc shaman here. So these are kind of loadable textures for creating an enemy. One of the things I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to open the old game to get data about the Orc Shaman stats. And in the meantime, we can set the sprite name, Orc Shaman. Examine text. Educated orcs are rare. Psychic ones even more so. Aggressive. Psychic. So this is the old game. Here's Orc Shaman, there we can get some stats to use. So, let's see if I make this a bit bigger. Is that a little bit more legible? So these guys are big boys. 90 health, 50 strength, 50 ranging, 175 psychic, 145 accuracy, 90 defense, level 125, 250 XP. They aggro at 6, attack at 5, have an attack speed of 4. Yeah, Shulk always avoids the orcs. Yeah, no, dude. Bro, like my Damascus account, I didn't even get deep enough to, like, orcs would just one-shot me. I was like, I think that is everything. So yeah, so basically we just do the data entry in this little Unity scene, and the reason I'm structured it this way is this will then build descriptable objects, pull everything by name, pull and set up all our animations that we've discussed, and more importantly, it will generate JSON files for the server so that I can do all of my server-side stuff. So that is now all kind of automatically been added. I get a console log about it, and if you check here, if we go to enemies, we now have Orc Shaman in our enemy JSONs. If we go to our enemy prefabs, we now have Orc Shaman in our enemy prefabs. One last step I have to do by hand because I haven't automated this part yet, but we have to just set up the material. So if we go to enemy materials, jump in here, here you can see all the characters. In fact, here you can see what a psychic character looks like, where you're getting that kind of luminous shine on their magic attack. And part of doing this and setting this up is that we're going to set up the emission map for the enemy animations. So here are our animations. There's the Orc Shaman. Here are the emissive maps. So now what we're going to do, we're going to open our Orc Shaman and quickly create the emissive map. I'm also going to rename him just so this is appropriately named. So I'm going to duplicate this one, drop it in here. I'm going to rename this Orc Shaman underscore emissive, and then we're going to open this, and quite simply going to grab my paint bucket tool, set it to black, set it to anything non-contiguous, and everything that isn't the mud we're going to, oops, I'm not showing a sprite, okay, sorry. I'm in Sprite. I have got my Orc Shaman. I want to make the emissive map, and basically I've got my dropper tool. I'm making it contiguous, and anything that's non-contiguous, it's going to black out, and we're basically going to black out everything that isn't the mud attack, like this. And there you go. So now only the magic is highlighted on the emissive map. So can jump back to the Unity scene. Slightly lost because the two Unities. I think I can close this one. Oh no, I need that one anyway because I need to find the placement. My bad. Okay, so here we have the emissive map. Now we can go back to our materials. Yes, applying glow effects for the magic layer, 100%. So I'm going to show you right now. So we're going to copy our cultist over here. We're going to rename this Orc Shaman. So if you look here, you can see the kind of preview of the sprite map. Going to grab our shaman sprite we just animated, and we're going to grab the emission map of the same name. And there we go. Now you can see that we have a much brighter Mud Blast. Possibly a little bit too bright. Let's tune it a bit. There we go. I think that's a bit better. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this in the game so we can see it. So that's going to take a couple more seconds. So all enemies are placed using a enemy placement map. So I'm going to show that right now. So this file is a PNG, and we open it in Sprite, and different colors, different color pixels across our world map represent different enemies. So now we need to assign a hex code to this Orc Shaman, and then we'll be able to place him. And then that is going to put it into the game for us, which is very exciting. And then the other thing we want to do, so if we jump back to the screen and look at our old game, and we're going to find where the Orc Shaman is sitting. Let's see. Okay, so there's like three chilling up here across that lake. Very dangerous. And then there are a bunch that are sitting around this river. Okay, so that is very simple. So we can minimize that. Go here. Now we want to choose a color for the Orc Shaman. I feel like a brownie green works. So something like this, I think that's fine. So copy the hex code. Hex code looks unique, that seems fine. Cool, so now we can come back to Sprite. So as we checked, so there were a couple, I think there was 3 spawns, whoops. There were 3 spawns up here. And maybe those are the ones we're actually going to go and test. And then there are a bunch scattered around these rivers. So like 4 on this side, a couple on this side, almost like they got separated. I kind of like that idea. Sweet, so it is that simple. Replacing all the white with Orc Shamans. Yeah, dude. 200,000 Orc Shaman spawns. GG's. Cool, so then we save it. Go back to our main scene. Can finally close this one. And now I have enemy location generator, which is a different scene. So we go to this new scene. You'll notice this has that map we added, and we grab the hex code that we just pulled in. And we add it to the bottom of our list. So this hex code over here is going to pull the... Can you rename those color keys? You mean on this side? Element N might get confusing. Yeah, I mean, sadly Unity doesn't let you, I don't think. Like, they're just copy property part. It just, because it's just an array of colors. I can probably make it a dictionary, but the good news is I've got like a backup data store. But yeah, that's a fairly good point. But right now I've got all the hex codes loaded up into a Google Sheet with all the names and everything. But the nice thing is this actually automatically assigns the names based on the JSONs in the folder. Anyway, but yeah, probably something that could be made a little bit more robust, but works pretty well. So if we check here, Orc Shaman generated, locations 23, everything worked fantastic. So what has that done? This has created the files, so we can now quickly open up our world server. So open some folders here. And basically copy in the shaman enemy. And then copy in the shaman enemy locations. Fantastic. And all I have to do is rerun the world server. And I think last time we had 429 enemies. 441. So it looks like the orc has been added. And then we go to the main scene, so client side. So now that the server recognizes the creature, we are able to put them in. Oh, hold on. We made the enemy material, but we didn't assign it. Check out. Yeah, so last step. Go over here, enemy material, shaman. There we go. Now it's been assigned. And then enemy manager, and finally we add the prefab to enemy prefabs. There we go. There you go. Orc shaman. And yeah, now we should be able to go and find them. And the best part is maybe a little bit with entering a few things here and there, but this is an MMO, so it is not only like the enemy is added single player, it's actually added across the game. And if anyone else logs in, and it's all multi-combat, so you know, you and your friends can all fight everything together and that sort of stuff. Okay, so I think we need to go up here. Yeah, dude, logging in is quick. uh, Win and I have gone to some great lengths to improve a lot of those systems. Like, so one of the things is that like there's no username or password; it's just auto login on the Steam page, and the other thing is that it's very fast. Really, just wanted to get like remove all the friction because I think Damascus was like friction the game. We haven't redone character creation. We got some plans there. I'll let you know those in a second. Okay, there we go. Okay, cool. So, hmm. It's like I want more bloom, but it's like the brown might be the wrong color for that then. It feels like I'm just, yeah, the glow's technically there. So I just want to try this, make this like really extreme and see what happens. I suppose I'd have to do it on this orc, right? Okay, let's find the one that's attacking me. Hmm? One's attacking me, surely. This one. Okay. So let's make this one really bright. Okay, that's a bit better. Okay, so I think I may have to change the orc to use fire instead of mud, because I don't think the brown shines enough, if that makes sense. Yeah, you lose the brown. So I'm probably just going to change it to fire because it's got to be a psychic attack, and a big fireball like that looks cool. And then we could just put burning on the player. So I think what we'll do a few things here. So we're going to grab this one. We're going to, yeah, I think 7.5 is fine there. The next thing is, I think this is, was I seeing some gray? Oh, I know what it is. No. Enemy materials, shaman, emission, HR. Anyway, let's check this out. Yeah, it seems like his outline isn't as black as it should be. Is it? I just want to see something. Well, I mean, okay. Is this the emission? Crazy. Okay, so yeah. I mean, maybe the mud just has to stay mud, right? Okay, so the emission was so bright it was actually affecting how everything else looked. So that's probably not what we want. I think we're going to tweak that, and I think we're going to solve it in two ways. We're going to change the emission to something more reasonable. So reasonable emission is like 3. So we're going to go like 3. And then I think we're going to make it fire. So and I think let's just do this quickly, and then that'll be a nice. I think that'll be a nice kind of conclusion to the stream, and a nice place to end off on, unless you have any special requests, Honorable Shulkin, or the Honorable. Let me butcher his name again. Um, Fernandodgster? Fern? Honorable Fern? Can we go with that? Is that fine? Just Fernando, it's fine. Okay, yeah. Fantastic. Okay, now I understand. It's Fernando JSG. Okay. I'm an idiot. That makes so much more sense. Okay, so let's jump in here. And I think the way we're going to do this is we're going to use our magical dropper tool, paint bucket. And let's do this as red. And then let's get a yellow in there. Okay, cool. So that is a fireball. Maybe even the red can be a little bit more orangey red. Well, definitely brighter and redder. There we go. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, I think the emission can't handle browns. I think the reason it can't handle browns is technically brown doesn't exist. It's just it's like dark orange, like like at a color theory level, which is weird. But I guess the computer also probably just struggles with it for the same reason. I don't know if you've seen that it's like a TikTok or something where it's like brown doesn't actually exist, and it's like they take orange and they de-shade it and it becomes brown. So I think it's a similar thing happening at the processing level that's possibly causing an issue with Unity's emission. But also like I think fire is fine. And then just so we get let's see, on the emissive. Look, on the plus side, the orc is getting a kind of unique fire treatment. So we can just do this. There we go. So now we should have a fire effect. And the last thing I need to do, and this is probably the coolest, is that if I go to the enemy prefab, go over here, and grab our Orc Shaman. Yeah, here you can see the fire looking a little bit more reasonable. Maybe even can tone down the aggressiveness here. That should be fine. And then on this enemy, well, actually on the enemy itself, over here, in our enemy definition, you'll notice an optional setting for a effect prefab, and this is where you can drop your player effect. So in our case, we put a fire effect, obviously for something like the yeah, slightly more terrifying. Now think about it, dude. It's crazy orc shamans setting you alight with the power of their mind, and they're not particularly smart to begin with. There we go. Okay, I think that works. Can maybe even be a bit brighter to trigger the glow. Let's do one more tweak. I don't know why that dropped to 1.5. 3.3 I think is 3.3 is a sweet spot. You're getting wrecked, dude. I mean, what damage numbers am I taking? Yeah, that looks better. Just see if we can tune it in real time. I think this is one of the advantages of something like Unity, is you can come and do kind of instance-based tuning. That's what's fun. Because what I'm looking for is the same kind of glowiness. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay, there we go. That's what I wanted. Okay. So it's 5.3 for this, but definitely not 5.3 when it's brown, because then it looks weird. You live and you learn. I'll put that in my important notes. You know. Show you guys my important notes. 5.3 but not went brown. 100%. Lol. Cool. Be grief it doesn't allow mud magic. Well, on the note of mud magic, Win and I actually want to add a few spells called Quagmire, which are references to Rudy's Grey Rat for anyone who has enjoyed Mashiko Tensei. But the reasoning is that the idea is that you'll be able to create mud pools on the ground that will, if in PvP, if other players run through them, it'll turn their run off and drain stamina. And then against enemies, it'll do a mini stun, and obviously if there's running enemies, turn their run off. And on the note of running enemies, and this is kind of why there's a run slot in the animation thing, we're looking at giving certain enemy types a kind of run component to them, which will allow them to move 2 tiles per tick, which obviously means if you're fighting those enemies, you can't actually run away, you have to teleport away if you're in deep combat, so that's going to definitely create some pressure. So very excited for that. But yeah, so pretty happy with those shamans. Probably going to tweak the how their fireball looks. Not super happy with it because it was obviously intended to be a mud ball, but got changed because of glow effects. And you know, I want the psychic magic to feel magical. So like, I'm happy with projectile weapons being a little bit more understated when you use them, such as the bow and arrow or the gun. But for me, you know, I want psychic to feel psychic. And then also wanted to just show Fernando one of our desert towns. This is Cactorio. It's a town run by cactus people. And if you're too low level, they're very aggressive, and they will shoot their spines at you. I'm too low level and I will die. But I'm immortal, so I cannot die. Oh, and then for those who don't know, this game is fully crafting based in the sense that, kind of RuneScape means Minecraft, gather items, build different things, fight, all sorts of vibes. Cool, anyway, thanks for watching the stream. Thanks so much for being part of it. Shot for chatting, Fernando. It was very cool. Thanks for being part of it as well, Shulk. Always love it when you jump in and we can spitball some design ideas and add things to the game. It's always super fun. Thanks to everyone for watching. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. And yeah.